My name is Maya Brooks. I'm 28 years old. And 2 Sundays before my wedding, my father stood on a stage in front of nearly 3,000 people, smiled like he was about to preach something holy, and then used my life as a warning. I was sitting in the front row. Same seat I'd sat in since I was a kid. Section A, left side, third chair in. And he said, clear as day into the mic, sometimes what looks like love is actually compromise. People leaned in. They always did when he dropped his voice like that. Then he said my name. My daughter Maya is making a decision I cannot support. You ever feel a room shift? Like the air just dips? Like suddenly everybody's watching you breathe? Yeah, that. He didn't stop there. She's choosing to marry a man with a past, a man already tied to another woman through a child. And as a father, as a pastor, I can't stand beside that and call it God's best. Someone behind me whispered, "Oh, wow." My hands were cold, not shaking, just numb. Then he smiled again, that calm, practiced smile. Let's pray she comes back to truth. And just like that, the entire room bowed their heads, except me, because I was sitting there wondering how the same man who taught me how to pray just turned me into a sermon example. I didn't cry, not there. I waited until I got to my car, closed the door, and that's when it hit me. Not just what he said, but who he said it to. 2,800 people, live stream cameras rolling, clips ready to be posted before I even made it home. My phone started buzzing before I even turned the key. Texts, DMs, missed calls. Maya, is this about you? Girl, I'm so sorry. Wait, what's going on? And then one message I'll never forget, from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, I go to your dad's church. Just wanted to say that was messed up. I stared at that text for a long time, because strangers were showing me more grace than my own family. And the craziest part, that wasn't even the moment that broke everything. No, that came 2 weeks later, at my wedding, when a 7-year-old girl walked down the aisle holding something in her hands that would flip the entire narrative. But before I tell you what she carried, you gotta understand how we got here. Because this didn't start with a sermon. It started years ago, with an image. See, I grew up in one of those big, polished, picture-perfect churches in Dallas, the kind with LED walls, a cafe in the lobby, volunteers in matching shirts saying good morning like they practiced it in a mirror. My mom used to check my outfit before every service like I was about to go on TV. Wrinkles mean distraction, she'd say, smoothing my dress. Distraction takes attention off the message. I was 10 the first time she said that. 10. I didn't even know what image management was, but I was already living inside it. There were rules, unspoken but heavy. Don't date outside church, don't question leadership, don't air family business, and definitely don't bring anything complicated into the spotlight. My dad called it protecting the testimony. I called it exhausting. But I didn't realize how deep it ran until I met him. His name was Marcus Reed. I met him on a random Thursday afternoon at the community center where I volunteered. I was helping organize after-school tutoring. He was in the corner, sitting cross-legged on the floor, helping a kid with math homework. Not hovering, not showing off, just there. The kid got the answer wrong and got frustrated. Marcus didn't correct him right away. He just smiled and said, "All right, let's run it back. We got this." No pressure, no ego, just patience. Later, I saw him tying a little girl's shoelaces. Same energy. gentle, focused. That little girl? His daughter, Lila, 6 years old, big eyes, missing one front tooth, talked like she had somewhere important to be. I didn't ask about her mom that day, but I noticed something. The way he carried her backpack and his own, the way he checked her hair before they left, the way he listened, really listened, when she talked. That told me everything. Weeks later, I learned the rest. His wife passed away 3 years earlier. Car accident. No warning, no goodbye. Just gone. And he'd been raising Lila alone ever since. Working full-time, showing up every day, no applause, no audience, just love. Real love. Not the kind you preach about, the kind you live. We started slow. Coffee after volunteering. Then dinner, then long conversations in parking lots where neither of us wanted to say goodbye. He didn't try to impress me, didn't throw big words around, didn't quote scripture like a performance. He just told the truth about grief, about fatherhood, about how hard it is to rebuild your life when it breaks in half. And one night he said something that stayed with me. "I'm not looking to replace her," he said quietly. "I'm just hoping to build something honest with someone who stays." Someone who stays. That hit different, because I grew up around people who showed up when it looked good and disappeared when it got messy. By the time I introduced him to my parents, I already knew. They weren't going to see what I saw. They weren't going to see a man who survived loss and chose to love again. They were going to see a risk, a complication, a crack in the image. And I was right. My mom smiled too hard when she met him. My dad shook his hand but didn't hold eye contact long. They asked polite questions, job, background, church. Then Marcus mentioned Lila, and everything shifted.
Just a little, but enough. That night, after he left, my dad sat at the head of the table, quiet for a second, then said, "He seems decent." Decent. That word felt small. "But Maya," he continued, "you need to think about what comes with that." I knew what he meant. He didn't say it outright, but I heard it anyway. The child, the past, the story people would tell. I looked at him and said, "I am thinking about it." And for the first time, I didn't mean what he wanted me to mean. Because I wasn't thinking about the image anymore. I was thinking about love, real love, the kind that shows up, the kind that stays. And I had no idea choosing that kind of love was about to cost me everything I thought family meant. I wish I could say the tension stayed quiet, that it was just subtle looks and side comments. But nah, it escalated fast. Because love like that, the kind that doesn't fit the script, it makes people uncomfortable, especially people who built their whole life on looking right instead of being real. Marcus proposed on a Sunday afternoon. Nothing flashy. No big crowd, no staged moment. Just us and Leela. We were at the same park where we'd had our first real conversation. Late afternoon, sun hitting that golden hour glow, kids running around, somebody grilling way too much food in the distance. Leela was sitting on a blanket, coloring something. Marcus looked at me, a little nervous, but not shaky, just honest. "I don't have a perfect story," he said. "You already know that." I nodded. He took a breath. "But I know how to love you. And I know how to show up, every day, no matter what." Then he got down on one knee, and before I could even process it, Leela ran over. She was holding a folded piece of paper. "Wait, you gotta see this first." Marcus laughed. "Baby, we talked about—" "No, Daddy, it's important." She handed it to me. I opened it, crayon letters.
messy, crooked, perfect. Will you be my forever family? That was it. That's when I broke. Not the quiet, hold it together kind of crying. I mean full-on, mascara destroyed, can't even speak tears. Because nobody had ever asked me something that honest before. I said yes. To him, to her, to all of it. And for a moment, everything felt right. Like maybe, just maybe, love would be enough. Yeah, I didn't know what was coming. I told my parents that night. Big mistake? My dad didn't yell. He never yelled. That would look bad. Instead, he went quiet. That controlled, measured silence he used when he was about to say something reasonable that cut deeper than anger ever could. A widower, he said slowly, like the word itself tasted wrong. Yes, I replied. And a child. I didn't answer, because that wasn't a question. That was judgment dressed up as concern. My mom stepped in, softer, but somehow worse. Maya, sweetheart, have you really thought this through? There it was, that tone, the one that sounds like love but feels like a leash. I have, I said. My dad leaned back in his chair. You're not just marrying a man, you're stepping into someone else's unfinished story. I looked him dead in the eyes. Or maybe I'm helping build a new one. That should have been the moment he saw me, not as his daughter, not as part of his image, but as a grown woman choosing her life. It wasn't. Instead, he said something I'll never forget. You're choosing baggage over blessing. Baggage. That's what he called a 6-year-old girl who lost her mother? That's what he called a man who stayed and raised her. I felt something in me shift right then. Not break, just shift, like a door quietly closing. The next few weeks? Messy. Not loud messy, calculated messy. My parents didn't disown me. No, that would have been too obvious. Instead, they tried to manage me, suggested counseling, just to make sure you're not rushing, offered to pay, recommended a therapist from church. Translation, fix her. Then came the subtle pressure. What will people say? This could affect your father's ministry. You don't understand the weight we carry. I started hearing it everywhere. At dinner, on phone calls, even in silence. Every conversation somehow circled back to the same thing. You're making us look bad. And the craziest part? Not once did they ask, are you happy? By the time I asked my dad to officiate the wedding, I already knew the answer. But some part of me still hoped, still believed maybe he'd choose me over the stage. We met in his office. Same one with the awards on the wall, photos with politicians, conference plaques, not a single picture of me. He said, I can't do it. Just like that. No hesitation. No? I asked. It sends the wrong message. There it was again. Message, image, perception. Everything except love. So you won't come? I asked. He paused, then said, carefully, I didn't say that. But he didn't say yes either. My mom reached for my hand. If you go through with this, we'll support you privately. Privately? Like my wedding was something to hide? I pulled my hand back. No, I said quietly. I don't need private support. That was the moment, the line, the boundary. The version of me that kept trying to earn their approval, she stayed in that office. I walked out without her. Planning the wedding without them was strange. Not sad, just different. Because for the first time, Everything we built was real. No performance, no pressure, just people who actually cared. Marcus's friends showed up, his coworkers, Leela's teachers, neighbors, people who didn't need a spotlight to prove they loved us. We had a small guest list, simple setup, backyard ceremony, string lights, folding chairs, homemade food, and somehow it felt bigger than anything my parents ever planned. Because it wasn't about looking perfect, it was about being present.
About a week before the wedding, Lila came to me with an idea. She was sitting at the kitchen table, legs swinging, markers spread everywhere. "Maya," she said, "can I do something special at the wedding?" I smiled. "Of course, baby. What do you want to do?" She leaned in like it was top secret. "I want to carry a sign." "A sign?" She nodded. "Yeah, like the flower girls on TikTok, but mine's gonna be better." I laughed. "Oh, really?" She crossed her arms, serious. "Yeah, way better." "What's it gonna say?" She grinned. "That's a surprise." Marcus looked at me from across the room like, "You sure about this?" I just shrugged. "Let her," because something about the way she said it felt important. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was nervous about marrying Marcus. That part, I was solid. It was everything else. The silence from my parents, the empty space where they were supposed to be, the reality that tomorrow they wouldn't be there. No dad walking me down the aisle, no mom fixing my dress, nothing. Just absence. And I thought that would break me. But instead, it made something clear. Love doesn't show up when it's convenient. It shows up when it matters. And the people who were going to be there tomorrow, they mattered. The morning of the wedding was calm, almost too calm. Sunlight coming through the windows, soft music playing, people moving around, setting things up, laughter in the background. Real laughter, not the kind you fake for photos. Lila kept checking her little bag, over and over, like she was guarding something important. Marcus knelt down in front of her. "You good, kiddo?" She nodded. "Yeah, I just don't want to mess it up." He smiled. "You won't." She looked at him seriously. "What if people don't like it?" He brushed her hair back gently. "Then they don't get it." She thought about that, then nodded again. "Okay." By 4 p.m., everyone was seated. Music started. My heart was pounding, but steady, like it knew exactly where it was supposed to be. I stood at the back, waiting, holding my bouquet, breathing, and then the music shifted. It was her turn. Lila stepped onto the aisle, little white dress, hair perfectly braided, holding that rolled-up sign in both hands. Everyone smiled. You could feel it, that soft, sweet, aw moment. Halfway down the aisle, she stopped, right in the middle. People chuckled lightly. She didn't. She untied the ribbon, slow, careful, unrolled the sign, turned it toward the crowd. And in that exact second, the entire energy of the room changed, because whatever was written on that sign was about to hit harder than anything my father had ever said from a stage. She stood there, right in the middle of the aisle. Small hands holding that sign like it weighed nothing. But the moment she turned it around, it hit like a storm. The words were written in purple marker, big, uneven letters, some tilted, some too close together. Her teacher had helped with spelling, but the message? That was all her. It said, "My dad says love means showing up. Maya shows up for us every day. That's why she's my family." And underneath, in smaller writing, "My mommy in heaven sent her." No music, no movement, just silence.
The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels full. Like every single person in that moment realized they were watching something real. I didn't even remember letting go of my bouquet. It just slipped out of my hands. My vision blurred instantly because in one sentence, that little girl said everything my father never could. Marcus covered his mouth, trying to hold it together, but he couldn't. Tears just fell. No shame, no hiding, just truth. Lila looked around, a little confused at first, like, did I do it right? And then she saw me crying. Really crying. And her face softened. She ran the rest of the way down the aisle, straight into us. Marcus dropped to one knee and pulled her into his arms. I bent down, wrapped both of them up, and for a second, there was no audience, no cameras, no past, just us, a family, right there, built in the middle of everything that tried to break us. Somewhere in the crowd, someone sniffled, then another, then a full wave of quiet crying. You could hear it spreading. Not loud, just real. Our officiant had to pause. He actually stepped back, wiped his eyes, and said, "Well, I think we've already heard the most important part of today." Soft laughter. Through tears. The ceremony continued, but it didn't need to prove anything anymore. The vows, they mattered, but honestly, the truth had already been spoken. What I didn't know in that moment was that everything had been recorded. Christine's sister was sitting third row, right side. Phone steady, angle perfect. She caught all of it. Lila walking, the sign, the silence, me breaking down, Marcus crying, that hug. Every second. That video? 90 seconds long. That's it. 90 seconds that would travel farther than my father's sermons ever did. That night, around 10 p.m., she posted it. No big plan, no strategy, just a simple caption. Sometimes kids understand love better than adults. That was it. No tags, no names, just truth. By midnight, a few thousand views. Nothing crazy, but by the next morning, everything changed. I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop. Messages, notifications, missed calls. At first, I thought something was wrong. Then I opened the video. Hundreds of thousands of views, comments pouring in. This just healed something in me. Why am I crying like I know these people? That little girl just preached a whole sermon. By lunchtime, over 1 million. By night, 3 million. And then people started asking questions. Where are her parents? Why isn't the bride's dad there? Wait, is this that pastor's daughter from Dallas? It didn't take long. Someone recognized me. Someone connected the dots. And just like that, the story shifted. Clips from my father's sermons started surfacing, side by side with the wedding video. On one side, a man on a stage, talking about compromise, judgment, image. On the other, a child, talking about showing up, love, family. No filters, no performance, just truth. And the internet, it chose. By day 3, the video passed 10 million views. People weren't just watching it, they were feeling it, sharing their own stories, talking about parents who chose image over love, churches that looked perfect but felt empty, families that broke over expectations. And something else started happening, something my father never planned for. People from his church started speaking up. Quietly at first, then louder. We were there that Sunday. We heard what he said. This isn't the full story. Attendance dropped the next week. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough to be noticed. Conversations started. Questions started. And for the first time in years, control started slipping. 3 days after the video blew up, my mom called. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I answered. Her voice, tight, careful. Maya, we need to talk. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Just control.
This is getting out of hand, she said. People are misunderstanding. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Marcus and Lila were in the living room, laughing. That sound grounded me. No, I said quietly. They're understanding perfectly. Silence. Then she tried again. We can fix this. You just need to clarify things. Maybe post something. I stopped her. I'm not fixing something I didn't break. Another pause. Longer this time. Then she said something that told me everything. This is hurting your father's ministry. Not, this is hurting you. Not, we're sorry. Just the ministry. I closed my eyes for a second. Then I said the one thing I never thought I'd say to my mother. Maybe it needs to hurt. And I hung up. A week later, I posted my own message. Not angry, not dramatic, just clear. I told the truth. That my parents chose image over presence. That they refused to stand at my wedding, not because of who Marcus was, but because of how it would look. And that I was done shrinking my life to fit someone else's stage. That post spread almost as fast as the video. Because people don't just connect to pain, they connect to honesty. Months passed. Things settled. Not perfectly, not magically, but honestly. My parents didn't show up. Not for birthdays, not for holidays, not even once. And yeah, that hurt. I won't lie about that. But something else grew in that space. Peace. The kind that doesn't depend on approval. The kind that comes when you stop chasing people who only love you conditionally. Lila is 8 now. She still asks about them sometimes. Not with sadness, just curiosity. And I always tell her the truth. Sometimes people need time to learn what really matters. She nods, accepts it, moves on. Because kids, they don't overcomplicate love. They just recognize it. That sign still hangs in our living room, framed, right next to a photo from that day. The 3 of us, laughing, real, unfiltered. Sometimes people come over and see it and smile like it's just a cute winning moment. They don't realize what it really is. It's not decoration. It's a reminder that love isn't about who looks right on paper. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses you when it's not convenient, when it's not easy, when it costs something. My father preached to thousands every week about grace, about love, about family.
But a 7-year-old girl with a piece of poster board and a purple marker said more truth in 10 seconds than he did in 20 years. And the wildest part? She didn't do it to prove a point. She did it because she meant it. That's the difference. That's always been the difference. So if you're listening to this right now, and you've ever been made to feel like you're too complicated to be loved, or that your life doesn't fit someone else's idea of perfect, hear me clearly. You are not the problem. The performance is. And real love? It doesn't ask you to shrink. It shows up and stays. Every single time.